So as promised, I'm going to talk today about the Virtue Cycle coming out because the last one has finally been revealed. So let's take a look at these new cards and see where I think they'll fit in Commander decks and also in Historic Brawl. So let's start off with the blue Virtue, the Virtue of Knowledge. 4 and a blue. If a permanent enters the battlefield, it triggers twice off of its abilities. And then it has an adventure attached in front of it, Vantress Visions. For 1 and a blue, you get an instant adventure that you can copy an activated or triggered ability you control, and then you get to choose new targets for those. So you get like a one-shot upfront instant early in the game that you can do a trigger ability copy, or you can do an activated one, and then once you slam the enchantment, you basically have a second copy of Panharmonicon in play, able to copy any kind of ETBs. Now this would go really well in a Yarok the Desecrated deck, or just about anything else that you really care about the ETBs. When they come in, it does something else, and you get a second copy of it. And in case you didn't know, the art on all these virtues actually features the uncommon Knight Lords of the different realms of Eldraine. And so Virtue of Knowledge actually has Sir Eleonora the Discerning on the art, and it looks like she's looking for answers at Castle Vantress. Next up, we have Virtue of Loyalty featuring Sir Alan of the Lion's Claw. For 3 white, at the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, untap those creatures, and it has an instant speed adventure on the front of it, Ardenvale Fealty. For 1 and a white, you get to create a 2/2 Knight with Vigilance. So you get a little creature up front, and then you can cast the other side of it to make that knight bigger, plus all your other creatures. Now, this is very common for white. You get, a delayed trigger to put counters on all your creatures, or you get to untap creatures. They kind of combine the two of them together here. What I like about this one over a lot of those other ones, though, is usually it's at the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to put the counters on stuff. With this one, you get to do it at the end step. So you're going to get to, attack, and as long as your creatures survive the combat, they're going to get a +1/+1 counter on them, and then they get to untap, giving them kind of a pseudo vigilance. So where do I think Virtue of Loyalty is going to fit in? I think this is going to fit into any kind of creature swarming deck that you want to use, like Morel Shield of Argive would be good to put counters on all your little stuff to make them bigger. It's going to go well in any kind of deck that cares about +1/+1 counters. I'm actually going to feature it in a video I have coming in a day or two from now. That's going to have the new Ice Queen in it, Hilda, and so this is going to help bolster her deck, and I'll talk about it more there as well. Then we have Virtue of Persistence featuring Sir Conrad in the art. For 5 black, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and the adventure side is Lochthwain Scorn. For 1 and a black, target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, and you gain 2 life. So this is kind of synergistic where you get to kill a creature, and then you can bring it back later once the Virtue comes down. Now, this is basically an exact mirror of Debtor's Knell from one of the early Ravnica sets, but it was a black and white card. This is just mono black, so you can fit it into more decks. And it's a little easier to cast because that one had triple color. This one has double color in the pips. So where do I think this works out really well? Well, any kind of deck that is like a sacrifice deck, like Orzhov or Rakdos sacrifice type stuff, you're going to be able to sack your stuff, and you're going to be able to bring it back and just keep doing that over and over again as long as your graveyard remains intact. Next is Sir Farron the Hengehammer on Virtue of Strength. For 5 green, you get an enchantment that says if you tap a basic land for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that instead. And the sorcery speed adventure on the front is Garenbrig Growth. Return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. So where do I think this really fits in? Because this is basically a fixed version of Nyxbloom Ancient. Nyxbloom Ancient let you triple mana generation off of anything you tapped for mana. That included mana rocks or creatures or whatever. With this, it's only for basic lands. So right now, I don't see this seeing a ton of play outside of maybe a 1 to 2 color deck. It's not going to go into some 3 or 4 or 5 color deck because you have to have too many non-basic lands to make those decks operate correctly. With the 1 and 2 color decks, you're going to have a high consistency of basic lands. So like a mono green deck would do well with this card, or maybe like green white or something of that nature, but you're not going to really go past that. And you're going to want to ramp in. So like a big green stompy deck of some sort. Those kind of things are where you really want to have Virtuous Strength. This is kind of turbo ramp in, but we also have access to other things that like double and triple our mana already. So I'm not sure how this fits together. And the last of the revealed virtues is Virtue of Courage. For 3 red, you get an enchantment that says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you can exile that many cards from your library and you can play those cards this turn. And then Embereth Blaze is the adventure, and instant speed, 2 mana, deal 2 damage to any target. Now, I'm not quite sure what this really would slot into, because you have to use burn. So clearly a mono red, like a burn style deck, maybe Urabrask or Neheb the Eternal or something like that would do really well with here. Or maybe even the new Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin. He would probably do really well with this as well, but I'm not sure how much I really want to use this, because I mean it's optional. It's a May effect, but you gotta be careful because you have to use the spells that turn or you lose them for the rest of the game. And if you can't pay for a spell or whatever, then you're just screwing yourself. But it's really nice for a burn deck, because burn decks have the tendency to run out of cards really quick. You know, you dome somebody over and over again, and it's like they gain life, you're just screwed because you have no way of catching up with that life gain. With this, any burn spell, say a lightning bolt, is essentially a draw 3, and as long as you have the rest of the mana able to cast those spells, if you're getting like two out of those 3 cards cast, you're still kind of coming out ahead. You just got to be careful, because if you're chaining these things together with like burn spells and you keep exiling cards, eventually you're going to run out and you're going to exile something that you really wanted, and then you can't cast it. Well, that's all I have today. I just wanted to go over the new Virtue cycle, where I kind of thought they might slot in, or what kind of decks they would slot into. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, feel free to ask them down below. I'll see if I can answer them for you. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.